it's just easy for multinationals to say, oh, we prefer to be in the European Union. But in fact, let's look at Switzerland. It's the most competitive and the most successful country in Europe.
So Eric, you are Swiss and British. What are your views on the Brexit?
Well, I think, first of all, I'm going to give you a unique view that hasn't been expressed in the rhetoric between the Remain and the Leave. In the UK, with the exception of Scotland, we have common law which prevails. And common law has been built up over the time from Magna Carta, and it means that every written word counts. And if you forget a no in a contract, that's what it is. In Europe and in the European Union, all the countries have a codified legal system. And a codified legal system is based on good faith and intent. So when a judge decides in a case, it is not about the word and the exact content, it's what was the intention of the parties. So when the UK comes to interpret a European directive, it goes and interprets it word by word as you would in common law, which means that the consequences are far more severe than that of the rest of Europe, who interpret it on intent. So my feeling based on that alone is that the UK should actually leave the European Union, but not the free trade area.
So what would be the effects on the UK economy if they did leave the EU?
I think there might be a very short blip in the UK economy, but nothing severe. And then reality will set in. And when you look at how many European companies are invested in the UK and how much the European Union depends on sales to the UK, I think that common sense will apply and there will be a negotiation of a trade deal with the EU, either on a bilateral basis, each country, or it will end up on an EU basis. But I think even more important than that, there will be an opportunity for the EU, if they really want the UK in the EU, to say, well, we're prepared to give you a lot more if you stay in. And who knows? I mean, everyone is predicting everything from Armageddon to a great success. But I think if you look at it clearly and objectively, Europe has nothing to gain by not agreeing a deal with the UK in terms of trade. It probably has a lot to gain, and the UK will benefit by it, but he will be then free of all the all the European restrictions, and will be able to negotiate its own deals with other countries.
So if the UK do leave the EU, will there be job losses, and what companies will be feeling the effect of it?
I personally don't believe there will be any severe job losses. I think reality will set in. All the rhetoric that we've heard now, it's just easy for multinationals to say, oh, we prefer to be in the European Union. But in fact, let's look at Switzerland. It's the most competitive and the most successful country in Europe. And it is not in the European Union. It does have bilaterals. It didn't have a good negotiating position. If the UK does a Brexit, then Switzerland's position will be reinforced, and it probably has a better opportunity of also negotiating with the EU. And I think what Brexit will do is bring a reality to the EU that it should be really what it was always intended to be, a common trade area and not a common political area.
Okay, so for someone like me who works, lives and travels in the EU, what does the Brexit mean?
Well, being a British citizen that lived in Germany before the EU and lived in Switzerland before the EU, I think it means nothing, because at the end of the day, the only difference is you will not have the permanent right to go and live in the EU, but if you meet the qualifications and you have a job and you're not taking the job of another EU citizen, then you'll probably be allowed to.
Thank you for joining us in the studios, Eric. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for having me. It'll be interesting to see what happens on Thursday.
That's all for today's broadcast, but don't forget you can get the latest with the Dukascopy TV team by following us on Facebook or following us on Instagram. Goodbye for now.